Have you ever wondered why we're so obsessed with charts, diagrams, and maps? I mean, really obsessed. It's because of this really basic human need we all have to see information, to give it some kind of shape so we can finally wrap our heads around it. And today, that's exactly what we're going to dive into, this very human instinct to visualize, well, everything.
Okay, so we're going to start somewhere you might not expect. Take a look at this. This isn't a map of cities or, shipping lanes. Nope. It's a map of monsters. You've got dragons in China, the Wendigo up in Canada, the Loch Ness Monster over in Scotland. I mean, these are creatures straight out of myth and folklore. But look how they're charted, just as meticulously as if they were 100% real.
Which, brings up a really good question. Why? Why would we map things that aren't even real?
Well, it's because it gets to the heart of why we map anything. It's about our deep need to chart the unknown, to give some kind of structure to our ideas.
And just look at this side by side. On the left, you've got that map of cryptids, right? Pure imagination. And on the right, something that feels just as abstract, a map of all of human knowledge. The wild thing is, we use the same visual logic for both. And that tells you something really profound about how our brains work. We need to see it to get it. Doesn't matter if it is a sea serpent or the very concept of memory.
So let's take that idea and see how it plays out in the real world. Because we're not just mapping monsters and ideas. We're charting time, technology, and the very fabric of reality.
Let's start with time, for instance. It's totally abstract, right? You can't hold it in your hand, but we can absolutely map it. A timeline like this one, showing the history of AI, it lets you see the whole story in one go. You can trace the line from the very beginning, like the Turing test in 1950, all the way to the explosion of stuff like ChatGPT. Suddenly, a bunch of random events becomes a single, coherent journey.
But we don't just map the past. We're also trying to dissect the present.
And that brings us to things like this. It's basically a map of a machine. What you're seeing is a schematic for one of the most advanced drones out there, the Global Hawk, and it just breaks it down completely. Every single wire, every sensor, every little component is laid bare. It takes this overwhelmingly complex piece of tech and makes it understandable. It's our way of taming the chaos, one little piece at a time.
I mean, just think about that jump from charting time to charting every last wire. We're going from mapping decades of history on a simple line to detailing thousands of individual parts in a single machine. That fundamental drive to visualize things, to understand them, it works at literally any scale.
All right, but what about the things we can't see at all? The invisible stuff. How do we turn abstract data into tangible insights?
Well, we do it with things like this. This simple bar chart is looking at AI web traffic. It takes millions and millions of data points and makes the result, instantly obvious. You don't need to pore over some massive spreadsheet to see who's dominating the space. The chart, which is just another kind of map, tells you the whole story in like 2 seconds. Or take this for example. How smart is an AI? That's a totally abstract question, right? But if you plot different AI models on a familiar bell curve for IQ scores, with 100 being the average, suddenly you've created a visual comparison. You've mapped the super abstract idea of AI intelligence onto a framework that we can all immediately understand.
So what you realize is that these charts, they're telling a story about power, about competition, and about the incredible race to build intelligence.
And that brings us right to the new frontier. We're now mapping the vast and, let's be honest, chaotic world of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, just take a second and look at this. This is somebody's attempt to map the entire AI agents landscape. It's a lot. It feels overwhelming, and frankly, that's kind of the point. It's meant to show you a world that is just exploding with new companies, new tools, new projects. It's like a map of a gold rush, and it is changing so fast it's almost impossible to keep up.
But with any new and powerful territory, of course, there are dangers to chart.
Remember how old maps had "Here be dragons" written on them? Well, this is the modern equivalent. It's a flowchart mapping out the potential risks of AI in a clinical setting. It points to things like automation complacency, where doctors might start trusting the AI a little too much, or an unsafe failure mode, which is a nice way of saying the system could mess up in a really harmful way. So we're not just mapping the opportunity, we're actively trying to map the dangers too.
And that's the key, isn't it? With every new map of opportunity, we have to also chart the territory of risk.
Okay, so we've gone from monsters to machines. The big question is why? Why does any of this mapping matter? Well, it's about going from just seeing to actually doing. The ultimate purpose of all of this is action.
I love this diagram because it's so simple and so true. You have a huge group of critics, a smaller group of talkers, and then this tiny, tiny group of people who are the doers. Having a clear map, truly understanding the landscape, well, that's the first step to getting into that smallest group.
Because at the end of the day, these maps, these charts, these diagrams, they are tools for the doers.
And in today's world, in the age of AI, that call to action has a brand new twist. It's about taking these mind-blowing new tools and actually using them to build, to create, to solve something. You just prompt it.
So, we've learned to map monsters and machines, data, and now even artificial minds. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will we need to map next?